Today's presentation is From Measurable Goals to Making Progress. Today, we will specifically focus on the development of goals for the IEP and how parents participate in that process. We will also discuss how goals relate to student performance, the importance of having measurable goals and objectives, and the components of a measurable goal. Parents who have a better understanding of the process are better prepared to take an active role in the planning of their child's educational program. Before we talk about measurable goals in the IEP, here is an overview of the special education delivery cycle. It begins with identification, also known as referral. Then we move on to evaluation, for which parental consent is required. In step 3, we have the determination of eligibility. And if a student is determined eligible for special education, we move on to step 4, where we develop the individualized education program, the IEP. Then the IEP is implemented, and from there we have ongoing monitoring, and finally the annual or triennial reviews. Today we are focused on step 4, developing the IEP, and more specifically, developing measurable goals for the IEP. Throughout the special education delivery cycle, it is important to remember that parents are an equal partner in the special education process. Parents need to be at every decision-making meeting, whether they are in person or on Zoom or over the phone. Schools and parents should be able to work something out to be available for all meetings. Parents must be given the opportunity to participate and to share their concerns about their child. Again, parents are an equal partner in this special education process. Here we see the dictionary definition of partnership with the words equal, independence, and obligations highlighted. In this partnership, each partner is equal and maintains a certain independence while also having obligations to each other. Regarding parental rights in special education, parents are an equal partner in decision-making with the right to give or withhold consent for each evaluation and for initial services. Parents must be at every decision-making meeting, and parents are expected to share concerns for enhancing their child's education. What is an IEP? The IEP is a roadmap because it guides how the school will support your child's learning. It is also a process. It brings together a team to assess a child's needs and create a plan. As a product, it's the written document that outlines the services, supports, and goals for the student. Most importantly, the IEP is the main way parents participate in the special education process. It is also a legal agreement between the school district and the family to provide the services and supports your child needs. Who develops the IEP? The IEP team. These are the roles that must be present on the IEP team. It doesn't need to be a specific number of individuals because one person could take on multiple roles. The roles are the parent, case manager, general educator, special educator, other specialists as needed. This may be speech therapists or occupational therapists, agency representative or someone who can commit agency resources. That's someone from the school who can commit resources from the school, and someone to interpret evaluation results. It's also important for the student to be at the IEP meeting for as long as they can be, so that they can learn the process and learn how to advocate for themselves. The IEP is built step by step, and each part plays a key role in supporting the student. Let's walk through how it's developed. The PLAF, which is the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, is the starting point. It describes the student's current strengths and needs, academically, socially, behaviorally, and functional. It answers the question, where is the student now? Measurable annual goals and short-term objectives are based directly on the needs identified in the PLAF. They provide clear, targeted outcomes for what the student should achieve within a year, along with steps to get there. This is the instructional content of the IEP. Program modifications and related services. This refers to the supports that the student needs to access the curriculum and the school environment. This includes accommodations, assistive technology, therapy, and more. This section ensures access. And finally, the IEP must include how progress will be measured and how often it will be reported. This is about accountability, making sure the plan is working and the student is growing. Each part connects to the next. It's a logical flow from understanding the student's needs to setting goals to providing support and finally to tracking progress. The PLAF is the starting point of the IEP. It explains how the student's disability affects their ability to take part in the general curriculum or for preschoolers in age-appropriate activities. It needs to be current, measurable, and easy to understand. It should include the student's strengths, parent concerns, academic and non-academic areas that are impacted by the disability. And it should include every area of need that will connect to goals in the IEP. So in short, the PLAF answers the question, where is the student now? It is the foundation we build the rest of the plan on. The present level section also breaks down what the student can do, their strengths, and what they're struggling with, their needs. It covers both academic and non-academic areas like reading, math, behavior, communication, or motor skills. This section is key because it lays the foundation for accommodations and services. It helps the team decide what supports are needed for the student to access the general curriculum and participate meaningfully. And most importantly, it connects directly to the rest of the IEP. The needs that are identified here become the goals, objectives, and services that we build the plan around. Measurable annual goals. When we talk about the IEP goals, they need to be SMART. That means specific, what do you want to accomplish? Measurable, how will you know when you accomplish your goal? Achievable, can it be accomplished? Is it too ambitious or too easy? Realistic, is it realistic that the student can accomplish this within the year? And time bound, when will I work on the goal and when will the goal be accomplished? IEPs must include measurable annual goals, and in New Jersey, they must also include benchmarks or short-term objectives, even though the federal law no longer requires short-term objectives for all students. The goals should directly address the child's individual needs so they can be involved in and make progress in the general curriculum. They should also address any other educational needs that arise from the disability. So remember, while the federal law has relaxed the requirement, New Jersey regulations still expect that benchmarks or short-term objectives are part of every IEP. The goals serve as our roadmap. They help us track progress, and they guide instruction and services throughout the year. When developing IEPs, we think in two parts, goals and objectives. Goals are the long-range plans, what we want the student to achieve by the end of the year. Objectives are the smaller measurable steps that guide the student toward the goal. A well-written goal should be a positive statement that clearly describes an observable skill or behavior, based on the student's present levels of performance and supported by short-term objectives that break the goal into manageable progress points. Together, goals and objectives ensure that we're not just setting expectations, we are creating a plan to help the students succeed step by step. When writing IEP goals, it is important to include key elements that make the goal clear, measurable, and trackable. So let's break those elements down. Who? This is usually the student who is working toward the goal. What? What specific skill or behavior do we want the student to learn or improve? How? How will this skill be demonstrated, or to what level of accuracy or independence? Where? In what setting or under what conditions will the skill be practiced or observed? When? By when should the student be able to demonstrate the goal? It's usually within the IEP year. And mastery. How often or how well should the student perform the behavior to show mastery? Each element ensures that the goal is measurable and meaningful, so everyone on the team knows exactly what success looks like. When developing IEP goals and objectives, it is important to really think about what will be meaningful and relevant for the student. Here are some key things to keep in mind. The goals must align with New Jersey core curriculum content standards. They should support access to grade level learning whenever possible. We should consider the students' preferences and interests when we're developing goals. What motivates them? What do they want to learn? Also, reflect on your preferences. What do you see as important for growth for your child? We want to ensure that goals are chronologically age appropriate, even if skill levels vary. We want to think about whether the student can apply these skills in new places and real-world situations. Consider goals that support physical development, promote social interaction, and expand the student's experiences. And finally, focus on functionality. Will this goal help the student be more independent, successful, or connected in their daily life? Keeping these factors in mind will help us write goals that are not only compliant, but truly student-centered and future-focused. Here we have an example where goals that were developed for this student didn't focus on functionality or future or meaningfulness for the student. After 12 years of schooling, my brother Daryl, who is 18, has learned a lot of skills. For example, he can sort blocks by color. This shows strong visual discrimination, but he can't sort clothes for washing, which is a practical daily living skill. He can count to 100 from memory, so that's impressive, but he doesn't know how to calculate the correct change when paying for a $2.59 sandwich. He can put 100 pegs in a board with 95% accuracy in less than 10 minutes. That shows fine motor skills and focus, but he can't put quarters into a vending machine to buy a soda. So in this example, we see why it's so important to write goals that focus on functional, real-life skills, skills that will help a student succeed independently, not just academically or not just on isolated tasks. So how do we know we're writing good goals? Well, we want to write them with high expectations, and we want them to be in line with the parent and the student's vision. We want goals and objectives to be measurable, and the skills that we target should enable access to the general education curricula and school life, as well as they should prepare the student for life after school. Let's look at how we track and share progress in an IEP. So the team must discuss what strategies will be used to measure progress toward achieving goals and how the parents will be kept informed of that progress. Every IEP needs to include a plan for how the student's progress on their annual goals will be measured. This just means we need to be clear on how we will know if the student is making progress, whether that's through tests, observations, work samples, or data collection. It has to be something that we can actually measure. The second part is about communication. The IEP also needs to say how parents will be kept informed. This has to happen at least as often as regular report cards go out, but it should also explain whether the student is on track to meet their goals by the end of the year. So it's not just here's how they're doing, but also are we on track to reach the goal? This way, parents and teachers can work together and make changes if needed. The decision to place a student in a more restrictive environment needs to, meaning a setting with fewer opportunities to interact with non-disabled peers, needs to always be based on individual need, not convenience. It must be backed up by the IEP team with persuasive, well-documented reasons. Here we see some valid, legally defensible reasons for making that decision. First, if the student's IEP goals and objectives cannot be met in a more integrated setting, even with reasonable modifications and supports, then a more restrictive setting may be needed to ensure progress. Also, if supplementary aids and services still are not enough to help the student succeed in a less restrictive environment, for example, if integration actually prevents learning, that is a legitimate concern. And finally, if inclusion has harmful effects on the student, whether it be emotionally, behaviorally, or academically, or if it lowers the quality of the service that the students needs, those are also valid reasons to consider more supportive, possibly more specialized settings. This is never a decision to take lightly, but it must always focus on what's best for the individual student based on data, observation, and their unique learning needs. Now let's look at some of the reasons that are not acceptable for placing a student in a more restrictive setting. Here are some common but not legally defensible reasons. Categorical placements. Placing a student somewhere just because of the label or disability category that they have is not allowed. We can't say all students with autism go here, for example. Administrative convenience is also not an acceptable reason. Decisions can't be made just because it's easier for scheduling or staffing. Lack of resources like space, staff, or programs is also not valid reason. It's the school's responsibility to provide the needed supports, not shift a student because resources are stretched. Placing students based on where services happen to be, for instance, sending them to a specific school just because that's where speech therapy is available, is not okay either, unless that placement is also what is best for the student. Curriculum delivery methods or content differences are not valid reasons either. We can't restrict placement just because the general ed classroom teaches in a different style. And finally, cost. While it's usually not considered a valid reason, courts have noted that extreme cost can be relevant in rare situations, but generally, cost can't be used as the primary reason to deny a student a less restrictive placement. Bottom line, placement decisions must be individualized and focused on what each student needs to succeed, not what is easier or cheaper for the system. The following slides offer some important tips for parents as they navigate the IEP process. These are tips for participation in the eligibility meeting. So first, keep in mind that the eligibility meeting often moves directly into the IEP meeting. So come prepared to participate fully, or know that you can request to schedule the IEP meeting for another day if you need more time. Second, consider postponing detailed discussions of the classification label until after your child's needs, annual goals, objectives, and services have been clearly identified. The focus should be on what your child needs, not just the category. Most importantly, do not let the classification label drive the planning process. The label does not determine services. Your child's individual needs do. The goal is to ensure decisions are made based on supports and outcomes, not simply on eligibility category. Here are some tips for preparing for the meeting, the IEP meeting. Start by gathering and reviewing information. Make sure you understand your child's current performance, the core curriculum, and your legal rights. If you need more information, ask for it. Completing an IEP checklist and listing any significant changes or concerns can help you stay organized. Prepare a positive student profile, identifying related services your child may need, and think about any concerns with the current program. If you plan to bring a support person, notify the case manager ahead of time. Document any phone calls that you have had with members of the IEP team and the school. Find out who will attend the meeting and make sure enough time is scheduled for the meeting. Before the meeting, organize your materials, writing down your questions, and be ready to clearly support your ideas and requests. Practice communicating assertively. And during the meeting, remember that you are an equal member of the team. Participate fully, take notes, and consider bringing someone for support. If appropriate, have your student participate as well. As I said earlier, it is helpful for them to learn about the process and also to learn how to advocate for themselves as they grow up. Be prepared to negotiate. Review the IEP carefully before signing it, and remember that an IEP can be revised if needed. Follow up important requests in writing, and always end by thanking the team members for their collaboration. This slide focuses on ongoing support and monitoring after the IEP is developed. Remember, the IEP is written annually or sooner if needed, but planning doesn't stop once the student is placed. It's an ongoing process. Parents should continue to use the resources of the Child Study Team and to keep current copies of the IEP, the New Jersey Administrative Code, and local school policies so that they can stay informed. Attend teacher conferences and regularly discuss school at home. This can help you stay connected to your child's progress. Finally, become a school volunteer when possible. This can strengthen communication and it can build positive relationships with members of the school. If you have any specific questions about a particular step in the process, or if you have questions about your own personal situations, you can always reach out to SPAN at our phone number for technical assistance. I will provide the phone number on the next slide. So this is our contact information. The phone numbers that are there, the 973 and the 1-800 number, will connect you with us, and you can receive technical assistance from our staff. You can also visit our website to find more resources and links to future workshops. Thank you.